we have Siegfried Foessel, who is going to be talking about bringing stage events with real actors to your home in VR, a low-complexity solution for immersive media streaming. Phil.
Yeah, good day, everyone. So my presentation was born during the COVID pandemic. So the idea behind this was, now every theater is closed. How can we bring theater performance or stage events to the home? We started with this project, as I said, about 2021 and closed this 1 year ago about. And I do this on behalf of my colleague Joachim. Unfortunately, he's on another project work right now, so I will do it for him. And we have, of course, a lot of different other companies working on this project. So the idea of this was, okay, we have cultural events, and how can we bring cultural events to the audience if the theaters are closed? And on the other hand side, we want to have the feeling of being there, not simply watching a movie. And that's the reason why we started with this project. And we had 3 main criteria on this project. One is, of course, we want to give a kind of experience like in a spatial presence, so to be at an event location. The other one is that we want to have a kind of direct social presence, so to enjoy the event together with your friends. And the third one was to have, of course, also an indirect social presence, to being part of a larger audience. And we tried to solve this, of course, with different topics. One first approach was to use a 360-degree video with 3 degrees of freedom, means using a 360-degree camera, and then present this to the viewer at home. The main issue is, of course, if you want not simply to capture the stage, but also the surrounding, then you will have close objects like the seats around you. You have far objects like the stage. And if you use only a 360-degree camera, of course, you have a lack of parallax, and you get some motion sickness if you move your head around. And that's the reason why we came up with another approach and said, okay, what if we have a 6 degree of freedom, means we can walk around a little bit, or a 3 degree of freedom plus, let's say. And we made a user study and find out, okay, the feeling of a presence with 3 degrees of freedom is nice, but of course with 6 degrees of freedom it's much better. And the opposite is for the feeling of a motion sickness, of course. If you have close objects and you move with your VR headset, and we also said, okay, VR might be the right way to give an immersive impression, then you need, of course, also the 6 degrees of freedom. Okay, so the idea then came up, okay, let's record the actor's performance separate from the event location, so that we have on one hand side the live act, on the other hand side we have the event location, and we can, of course, make a volume capture of the event location, and we can make a light field recording of the live act. That was the next approach, but of course this is not very easy. So we started with a photogrammetry, so that means we made a volume capture of the event location of the theater. But if you have a real complex location and you have a lot of details like in this left-hand side, then you will find a lot of artifacts in a photogrammetry. And that's the reason why we said, okay, this might be not the right approach. So we said we take the photogrammetry and use this as a base for a 3D artist to remodel it and make a CGI model out of this. And that was for the, let's say, environment. so that we have, a remodeled theater created by a 3D artist. And then, of course, we come to the next step and said, now let's capture the actor's performance with a light field array, with a camera array. In this approach, we used a 4x3 camera array, so which gives a little bit the freedom of a viewer, so that you can move around your head a little bit and have the correct parallax. And of course, we worked on this topic and what we expected. So here you see a capturing of the VR headset while moving the head around. We found out that it is a very complex rendering. You have to transmit all of the camera feeds to the audience. It's resource hungry, compute intensive, and still, as you need to, let's say, calculate the depth maps in real time, and you have to render it in real time, you will see some artifacts at the border of the person's silhouettes. So it's not very easy, and we thought, this might be okay for some experience, but not for real transmission. And that's the reason why at the end we said, let's make a mix of 6 degrees of freedom and stereo. So that means we have the theater captured and remodeled with CGI. And we have a stereo camera pair where we can capture the live performance. And the missing parallax on the stage is not really a problem because the stage is far enough. So it's not necessary to have a parallax on this distance. However, then the question was, how can we integrate or combine the stereo content with the CGI model and the CGI environment, without, of course, having eye strain or even VR sickness. And of course, the scientists typically use a theoretical approach. So that means we want to integrate the stereo video into VR. So the idea was, we have a virtual screen per eye for the image projection. We can then integrate this virtual screen into the CGI environment, and then we do more or less a projection of the camera feeds to the virtual screen, and then we have all what we need. Nevertheless, the question now is how can you define the right stereo parameters? So if you choose the wrong stereo parameters, then your perceived actor might be on a different depth, even might be behind a wall on your theater. And that's what leads then to depth conflicts, which leads to eye strain, and this is not what we wanted to achieve. And so the theoretical solution is, of course, we have the stage, we have know the camera positions, we know the distance between the cameras, we know how these cameras are aligned to the stage, and we can, let's say, fit the projectors into the camera positions, and we have the same optical parameters like we have in reality, and we have then the right-sized projection screen, which we can fit into the 3D environment. And we have the same position of the observer's eyes and the cameras. So that's the theory. In practice, this did not work, because, of course, we have a lot of misalignments. We have mechanical imprecisions. The sensors might not be exactly at the position where it is. The optical parameters might not fit the global coordinate we do not have. we have a lot of hardware constraints, and maybe at the end even we want to have some creative decisions. So that's the reason why we said this is not the right approach. And for example, the impact of wrong stereo parameters are quite easy to understand. If you have the wrong camera distance, either your objects are too big or too small, and does not represent the reality. Or if you have the wrong focal length parameters, for example, your objects look either compressed or stretched. And this is also, which looks a little bit strange than if you look this in virtual reality. So we came up with many stereo parameters which we have to adjust. So more than 10 different stereo parameters to have the optimal solution for fitting the stereo content to the 3D environment. And how did we solve this? So we came up with a rapid prototyping tool to define the good stereo parameters, not by theoretical approach, but by, let's say, more practical calculations. So we captured the stereo. We generated out of the stereo a proxy 3D geometry. So this gives us an idea how this stereo looked like in a 3D world. We simulated the impact of the different stereo parameters, and we aligned the proxy geometry to the 3D stage model. And after this, of course, we could discard the 3D proxy geometry. And the big beauty of this, of course, we simply have to play back the stereo video with the determined parameters. And for this reason, we created in the prototyping tool a Blender model. So we integrated on the left-hand side here the 3D model within Blender. This is a CGI model. And on the right-hand side, or no, on the left-hand side, on your side, on the left-hand side, we have this proxy geometry which was created by the stereo capture. And with this, we could manipulate the stereo parameters until this were aligned with a 3D model. An example here is the floor, for example, by, let's say, changing the parameters, we could change the floor or the virtual screen so that it fits to the 3D model. And for the overall prototype, this looked like this. So we have the stage play, which we captured with stereo camera. We made this pre-processing like the 3D geometry and calculating this the stereo parameters. We pre-processed it for streaming. We simply transmitted then the correct processed stereo RGB feed to the client. And on the client side, we had a Unity game engine, which had the avatar models for your friends around you. We have the location model, which is a 3D CGI environment. And we fitted now the stereo projection and the rendering to these models and rendered it in the Unity client. And so with this approach, we get a practical solution. So that means we have a stereo feed, which we had to broadcast and transmit with low latency. And we had this CGI model rendered in the Unity engine. And the final experience looked like this, also captured as a VR, from a VR headset. So we have the CGI environment, we have avatars around you. Some of them were simply, let's say, dummy avatars. The avatars next to you were your friends, which could be moved. and which you can with which you can speak, and then you have this experience on your side. To come to the conclusion and outlook, I think this was a good solution for, let's say, having a kind of 6 degree of freedom experience, which avoids motion sickness, but also with a low complexity capture and streaming. And by combining the 3D model with the stereo video, it gives a very good visual experience. And for this, we created the software tool to determine the good parameters for the stereo. And we made a proof of concept production at the theater of Chemnitz in Germany. And I could not explain everything here right now, but I can tell you the paper associated with this presentation is 20 pages long. So my team made a lot of work on this paper. I said 20 pages. Somebody might not accept this, but they did. So you can read it and find out all of the details. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Siegfried. Appreciate that. Do we have any questions for him?
Maybe waiting for the mic. Otherwise, it's hard to understand here on the stage.
Thank you. I'm with Leica Geosystems. We do a lot of LiDAR capture, for environments and that sort of thing. You mentioned challenges with photogrammetry for capturing the environment and how that sort of produced artifacts. I mean, have you ever tried some sort of LiDAR solution for that, and have you seen similar issues? Or I'm always curious about what the pain points are with that sort of thing.
We work also, of course, with LiDARs, but the issue with LiDARs is, of course, that you do not get the texture of the sheets, for example, or some other specific details. Of course, you get the geometry, that's right. But also, if you look to this theater, it has really a very high detail, and that's very difficult then to capture. And that's the reason why we said, okay, we do not use the geometry based on a photogrammetry or LiDAR, but simply remodel it. It was simply faster.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for that presentation.